All right, good morning. Welcome to Sand Country Legends. We're here at historic Mizell, Georgia, and our guest today is Rilene Gray Eubanks, and we're so excited this morning to have Rilene. Rilene is a Sand Country legend, and she is legendary. She has a great story to tell, and we just want to take time and just have a conversation. I want to say a little bit about Rilene, somebody that I have known all my life and have loved all my life, and her family as well. So, Rilene, we'll get started. You want to just tell us where you were born and about your early life?
Okay.
That's okay.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, I was born in Americus, Georgia.
Americus,
Georgia. I've always lived in Butler, Georgia. My parents were a little bit older when I was born, and I lost my father. He was 42 when he passed away, and so it was just me and my mother. And I had a very good mother, and that's about all about my younger thing. I have 3 daughters,
right?
And I have to count several grandchildren, great grandchildren.
I was going to ask you. I
think I have 17 great grandchildren and maybe 8, 9 grandchildren.
My goodness, Rilene.
It's hard to keep up with it.
So did your father was James Riley Gray,
right?
And your mother was Jewel Bartlett Gray.
Exactly.
So where did they meet?
I don't know exactly where they met for sure, but my mother worked in my grandfather's store. He had a clothing store in Butler. And she worked there, and then my daddy was in town. He had a filling station and some other things, and I think probably that's the way they met.
Okay, and she's from Butler too?
Yes, she was born in Taylor County.
Okay. So do you know when they got married? You know
they married in 1934.
1934. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned your grandfather Gray was in the clothing business?
No, it was my grandfather Bartlett that was in the clothing business.
All right, on the square?
Yes, and he's the one that had the son Victor Bartlett, the first drugstore in Butler.
Yeah, I want to read about that in a minute and ask you about that. But so he would have been a competitor to the Drazens, right?
Probably so. Yes.
Yeah. So we'll mention Oscar Drazen a little bit more in just a little bit. But so Rilene, you when you were born in Americus, did they live there at that time?
No, they lived in Butler always, but my mother just went to the hospital and doctor
in Americus. I got you. Well, good.
She was older, and she just had her doctor was there, so.
I got you. So you lived in, when you were growing up, y'all lived in North Taylor County, is that right? Mm-hmm. So where generally?
The same house. It was up, I'm trying to think how to tell you. It was Poplar Street back then. I don't know if it still is or not. In Butler. In Butler.
All right. Okay. So how were you when your father died?
I was 4, just was
4 years old. So you barely remember him. Do you have any
I remember him a good bit. I really do.
Okay. Well, that's neat to have those memories.
Yes.
So, Riley, there's no question about it. Riley Gray was a large landowner.
Yeah.
And a very wealthy man. And that was most unusual at that time. Yeah. I mean, to accumulate that kind of land and wealth during the Depression. And so you died at 4 years old. So you and your mother and his sister, right? Mary Tom Gray. Mm-hmm. So I know there are 2 houses that are still standing.
That's where we live.
That's where you live. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. And he grew up North Taylor County.
He grew up North Taylor County, yes, on the farm. Well, I say that. He was like maybe 9, 10 or something when they moved to Butler.
I got you.
His father moved to Butler, built the house, and my grandmother not want to leave the country, so it was a while before she came. And then after she came, Mary Tom was born, and so I guess you could say he started off in the country. He's maybe 10 or 11.
Right. So, Rilene, I guess, growing up in Butler, I know you had a great childhood. Your father had passed away, but you had a lot of people that cared about you and loved you, and your mother and Mary Tom Gray, your father's sister, just were kind of there. But I guess soon, Rilene, when you became of age, that responsibility fell on you to look after your mother and Mary Tom and the land and all of that. And I know that wasn't easy, but that's part of your story.
Yeah.
And I've always admired you for that you have managed that well. And of course, you married Earl Henry Dunn Jr. And we call him Sonny. Sonny's passed away now, but so y'all built a house in Butler and started your life there and raised 3 beautiful girls, and which are great friends of mine and always have been, Vicky, Christy, and Debbie. And so what was it like raising 3 girls in Butler?
It was hard. It was hard, but we came through it.
That's right. You did, and of course you still had your mother. Your mother moved in with you.
Yes.
And I don't remember. I don't think I remember Mary Tom Gray at all. Did she? She passed away?
She passed away in 1990.
1990. So I probably would have remembered her. Did she stay in her house until she passed away?
No, she was in the nursing home. She fell and had some problems. So she was in the nursing home.
That's right. Okay. And so I wanted to read something out of the Fall Line County, a history of Taylor County, Georgia. And I just want to read and just get your recollection of this. And it's on page 442, and it says, Victor Bartlett, brother of Mrs. J.R. Gray, opened Butler Drug Company on Ivy, East Main Street corner in Butler in the early 1920s. Dr. Charles Ficklin had his office in the back of the store. Dr. Ficklin's grandfather was C.F. Ficklin, for whom Ficklin Mill was named. Dr. Hugh H.G. was the pharmacist. So I didn't know that, Rilene. I didn't know that your uncle was a pharmacist, right?
I don't think he was a pharmacist. I could be wrong. I don't think he was. I think that's the reason. Was it Dr. G that worked for him?
That's right.
I think he was a pharmacist. I think my grandfather just opened that for Victor.
Okay. All right. So, so your grandfather Bartlett opened it for.
That's what my mother. She said he opened it for Victor.
I got you.
He did it for him.
And that would have been the store that was like a general store as well.
No, the one that he opened the drugstore for Victor. But yes, my grandfather had a clothing store, and it was directly across from the Edwards building somewhere, because I've heard the story. Mama told me one day 2 horses got out from the stable and ran across the road and ran in the store. And she said her daddy ran to the back and opened the door, and the horses went out. They didn't hurt anything. So
my goodness. Just reading through here, and there were a lot of doctors and pharmacists and lawyers.
We were blessed, Butler.
I mean, good doctors.
Yes.
I know in Oscar Drazen's. Let's just talk about that a minute. I had a fascinating story. Yeah. About 6 weeks ago, Bruce Goddard, a good friend of mine, he also does a podcast, A View from a Hearse, and he was fascinated with the Kuliks and Drazens, and they were Jewish families that lived here, and there was Kuliks and Reynolds and Drazens in Butler, and we found out that to back up a minute, Bruce invited the Kulik and Drazen ancestors to Reynolds, Georgia, and they gathered, and Bruce told the story. Many of them didn't know it. I mean, they had no idea. And they were just fascinated with the Drazen Kulik story. So we come to find out that Bruce happened upon Cody Rustin, who lives here. Rilene knows Cody. Yeah. And Cody's parents were Fred and Mildred Rustin. And Fred operated a school in Macon.
Yes.
And Oscar Drazen, we come to find out, could not read and write. And he was illiterate. And there was a person there, Miss Nellie Turner, who was his hands and, just he couldn't read and write with his eyes and his hands. And she could kind of tell what was going on, and she would just step up and do the things that he would normally do, and nobody ever realized it. Well, now you said your mom knew Miss Nellie Turner.
They were very good friends.
Right, okay. Well, that's a neat story, because I don't think I had asked Norma Jones if she was related. Norma said no, but she remembers shopping there, and she called her Aunt Nellie. Just because their last name was Turner. But so Oscar Drazen sold his store out, we think about 1948, and moved to Macon. And he remembered Fred Rustin as a good friend. So he enrolled in the Fred Rustin Institute of Business. And Fred's future wife, Mildred, was there, and she was a teacher. And she taught Oscar Drazen to read and write. And that was a goal of his life, that he could write. And his lifelong dream was to tell his story. And he did. And he wrote 164 typewritten pages of very good English, very articulate. You read it too, Rilene, and had some great memories. But he typed his memoirs and dedicated that to Mildred Rustin. And I just think that's a great story. One more thing before we move on, Rilene. When my grandfather moved to Taylor County, he left the Navy. He had sent my dad and my grandmother down from Washington, D.C. to Butler, just them two. I don't know how they got here. I guess in a car, train, I don't know, but 6 months later, he came and he wanted to go in the chicken business. I guess you remember their business. And you remember my grandmother. I'm sure you don't remember him. He died in 45.
I don't, but I remember her.
Right. And so he could not borrow any money to go into business. The banks wouldn't lend him any money because they said, well, you'll never make a living growing chickens. Can't do that. And so Oscar Drazen loaned him the money to get started. And I have two notes signed by my grandfather and Oscar Drazen. And, that's very good to me. And it's a great memory.
Special.
Makes it very special. So that's why I want to talk about the Drazens. So, Rilene, I work at First Baptist Church, and I have the minutes from, I guess, back to 1875, but as I began to go through the minutes of the church, I can hardly turn the page without seeing yours and Sonny's investment in that church. You did so much, and y'all contributed and helped grow that church. And I can just tell you, the church is where it is today because of people like you and others who made a lifelong investment there. And so in recent years, Rilene, you married Tom Eubanks, and y'all have a very, very good marriage. Y'all enjoy each other very much, and every day I see y'all getting in Tom's truck going somewhere to eat. You just enjoy being around
We enjoy each other. We love each other. It's
that's
very
right.
good.
And I think Tom probably courted you from across the way, and you really didn't know who was sending roses. Is that true?
Yeah.
But you found out.
I found out who it was that was sending them.
Yeah, just a great romance, and I think that's so special. Tom has become good friends.
He's a very good man,
very good person, and y'all spent when you married, you kind of went to church at Bethel. But now you're back at First Baptist.
Yes.
And
back home.
And I know that the day that you and Tom joined, I became very emotional because it was so good to see you back.
Well, you're very sweet.
Now, your daughter Vicky, she's on staff at First Baptist as well, and she is making a great investment, and she works hard at getting people to come to church.
I'm very proud of Vicky. I really am.
She works very hard, and
she's done a good job.
She is doing a great job, and we're so happy for her. But that is true. And Rilene, I know you have a great family, and you have so many grandchildren and great grandchildren, but you've had your share of trouble too.
Yeah.
And Rilene, there's not a single family on this earth that hasn't had trouble.
I know.
And I just sometimes I don't know how you have persevered, but I think I know the answer.
The Lord.
The Lord.
That's right. And He's carried me every step of the way.
Absolutely. And your faith, I know, is what has carried you through. And
yes,
my goodness, Rilene, you have the faith of a mountain, and that has just carried you through life. And it wasn't easy. And Rilene, if I can just digress a little bit, we talked about your father's wealth and his land holdings. How did he come about being a large landowner? And
I really don't know, but I know a lot of that property that he bought, he was in the logging business too.
That's right.
And he would cut the timber and pay for the place. Yeah, that's what I've been told.
Right. And I think he probably was the largest landowner in several counties besides L.L. Minor. I mean, they both kind of did the same thing.
Yeah.
And but I also think part of your story, Rilene, is the responsibility that you had to take on. And I know you had some help, but at the same time, you have managed that well. And I know that wasn't easy as a young person.
No.
But you did that well. And so what's going on these days with you? What kind of projects do you have going on? You always got some projects.
I like projects.
Right.
I am restoring the house across the street from the Baptist church.
That's right.
That was my grandmother's brother's house.
Okay.
Alexander Hamilton Riley. And he purchased the property in 1902, but I believe the house may have already been there because he evidently bought it from a lady that's last name was a Mitchell, and that was his mother's maiden name. So I think there was a connection. I haven't found out yet, but I think so. And I think the house may have been there.
Well, it's a beautiful home, and I'm so happy that you're restoring that. Similar to Mizell here, this house was built in 1904.
So pretty.
Yeah, thank you, Rilene, and it's a labor of love, and I know that's a labor of love for you.
Yes,
and,
yes.
So it's always good to have things restored.
Yes.
So you're the property that you have in Butler that is the service station that Tom operates, and the building there that you call Riley's. How did that building come about?
It was Suggs Machine Shop built, I think, for Walter Suggs.
Okay.
And that's where the Suggs Machine Shop was until he went across the road.
Okay.
So
did your father build it, or
no? He and Mr. Tom Cochran from Brookport, they bought it together.
Okay. After it was built, or
after it was already built, and it had been Suggs' machine shop, but Mr. Suggs went across the road, and I guess that's when they bought it.
Okay. And that's been other businesses through the years. I think maybe it's been P Brothers and
the bus station at one time.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. That's good to know.
Yeah.
And wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but it's been there a long time.
And also, I think Bo Barra got his start there.
He did in Homer too.
In Homer too,
the gas place, I think.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you own that property, and y'all just, you and Tom just enjoy, having a business, and I'm just happy to see y'all there every day.
Thank you.
It's a joy to ride by there and take a look and just see what y'all are doing, and so Rilene, let's talk about your faith just a minute. Do you remember, were you saved at an early age?
I feel like I always knew the Lord. My mother instilled that in me, and if I even had a headache or something, she would say, "Let's pray." So, but I did not actually make a profession of faith till I was 14.
I got you. Well, it's always to have parents that lead you to Christ.
Yes.
And
but now my mother had never made a profession of faith until I did, and we were baptized. I joined the church that morning. She was not there. And that night, Brother Carmichael baptized both of us.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
So as a child, did you go to Antioch?
No, we went to the Baptist church
in Butler.
Mm-hmm. So now we went to Antioch some because my grandmother, that's where I think she grew up. She was a pianist out there for a long time at Antioch.
She was Riley?
She was a Mitchell and married a Riley.
Oh, okay. So let me get that straight. So your grandfather Gray. Mm-hmm. No, your father Gray. So you had a grandfather Gray.
Mm-hmm. His name was Tom. John Thomas.
Okay.
Gray. Mm-hmm.
All right. And the Riley, how does the Riley fit in?
Wait a minute, I said that wrong. My grandmother was a Riley. Her mother was a Mitchell. I'm sorry.
All right. That's good. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I know that responsibility, Rilene, but just talking, it just occurred to me that your mother was a stabilizing force in your life.
She was.
She never remarried.
No.
And she was a very young lady when her husband passed away.
She was 44, I think, when he passed away.
44, and she lived well on into her 90s.
She lived till 94.
94.
50 years.
Beautiful lady.
But she loved him.
Beautiful lady, beautiful lady.
She was very sweet.
Yeah, she'd never remarried, and I know, Rilene, you were so blessed. You lost your father when you're 4 years old, but you were blessed to have your mother all those years.
Yes.
To live there with you.
Yes.
And well, that's about all, Rilene. Anything else you'd like to add? I mean,
no, I think you pretty well covered
it.
Really? Mm-hmm.
Well, good. And I want to let me talk about this one thing, and then we'll close. I believe in investment, and I know that not only do you invest financially, I believe in spiritual investment, and you reap what you sow.
I think so.
And when you make a spiritual investment, you get a spiritual return.
Yes.
And that's what makes a church a church.
Exactly. And
love is the engine that drives the church.
Yes.
And Rilene, you have a whole lot of love to go around.
Well, thank you.
And I know that I'm a recipient of your love, and I appreciate that. And you were just good friends, and you and Sonny both were good friends with my parents, and I know my mother and Sonny were good friends, and I appreciate that, and that means a whole lot. Mm-hmm. And everybody doesn't have that.
Right.
Everybody does not have people that cared so much about them, and I appreciate it very much. So, what's next, Rilene?
I don't know. I'm just looking around.
Really?
Yeah.
You're always looking.
I'm thinking. I'm always looking for something.
Well, that's good.
It'll come around.
That's good. And so your house that you're restoring, in Butler? What are your plans? Are you going to rent it?
Not sure. If
Okay.
we're open.
Right.
You know.
That's fine. Well, it's just a beautiful place, and it's certainly an asset.
But I just hated for it to look so bad with the church right across the street, you know.
That's right.
Plus, it had some ties, family ties.
That's right. Who lived there?
My grandmother's brother and his wife, but now I never knew him, but I knew his wife, Aunt Alice, and she was a wonderful Christian person. Alice Riley.
Riley.
Mm-hmm.
Where does...
And her two sisters moved in with her later on, Miss Alice Boggs and what was the other one? I'm not sure. I have my mind's blank.
Well, I don't remember. My mother told me we had some ties to them, and I don't know what they were, but she always talked about the three sisters that lived there.
They did. They lived there.
Right.
After he passed away.
Right. So, all right. Well, Rilene, we certainly appreciate you doing this. Okay. And the reason we're doing this, Rilene, is I want to record people that I think are legends. And you certainly are, and you're legendary. You've made a great investment in Taylor County and your family, and we want to record that for people that come along behind us. Okay. And we're putting this out on Facebook, and it'll have a digital footprint from now on. Okay. And your children and grandchildren and great grandchildren can treasure it. Mm-hmm. just to have you here and to share a part of your life. And which again, you have a great story to tell. And with that, unless you have anything else, Rilene, we appreciate it.
That's fine.
And we'll get it published out to Facebook, and you can watch it. How about that?
Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.